David and Karl from Adobe will give us some insights and tell us how we all benefit on a day-to-day work. Please.
Yeah, so welcome to our today's talk about rapid development environments for AEM as a cloud service. And as you mentioned, so us, it's David, Bosschaert, and me, Karl. And I guess some of you at least might know us from previous adaptTos. And also from our work around Apache Felix and OSGI and Apache Sling, very kind of unknown committers. And yeah, today we're going to talk about rapid development environments, and I want to start out with giving a little bit of an insight into the motivation we had for creating them. And then we follow up with David, who gives you a first demo of how we envision the workflow might work for you. After that, I'm going to go and dive a little bit deeper into the technical architecture and how it works behind the scenes. And then we see a real demo of working with rapid development environments by David again. And then we wrap it up, showing you how you can use it yourself using Cloud Manager already. And so, yep, with that, let's start with motivation. So really about, I guess, 2 years ago, we started thinking how we could make the life for developers better for AEM as a cloud service. So for the cloud development velocity. And us, it was for sure David and me, but also other people inside Adobe. Carsten was involved as well, a little bit. I see he's shaking his head, but he is. Yeah, so ever since we introduced cloud service, there obviously has been lots of innovation in doing it in the first place, but since then there's more and more things coming up. But the development experience really has stayed somewhat the same, right? You get the quick start. It's now called the SDK. It is nice. It does allow you to iterate quickly when you develop locally. You deploy your artifacts, configurations, bundles, and things like that into it, and you get feedback directly, right? It's hot reloaded, which always was the strength of AEM, I guess. I mean, nowadays other technologies also do this, but AEM had that for a long time. So it's workable, but with the introduction of the cloud service, I guess the local development is missing some parity here and there. So in the first place, it's small things where we do things a little bit differently in the cloud. For example, we don't use a provisioning model anymore. We use a feature model behind the scenes. So that there can be minor differences here and there, but also bigger things where we just have cloud-only features, services that we use, like the assets processing, but also integrations, right? You have and add-ons. You have assets essential, which you cannot reproduce locally. You have integrations like the analytics things that you can do. So setting those and SIF and other things. So setting those up locally is either impossible or very hard. Right. And then also maintaining a local SDK setup, if you really want to do it completely like you would have in the cloud with an author and a publish and replication and dispatcher in front of it, it's obviously time consuming, and then you have to update it all the time when new versions come along, so it's a little bit painful. So that's not optimal. And what you can do if you really want to test your development, you deploy to your dev environments, right? But the dev environment really, in my opinion, is a bit of a misnomer in that sense, for this use case at least. They're really more like integration or testing environments. In other words, you get the complete experience, right? You commit to Cloud Manager's Git, it builds it, validates it, creates Docker images, updates your environment. That takes some time, So after 20 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on your case, you see the result, and especially if the result is broken, it's not an ideal experience, right? So we've been thinking what we could do, and really the goal was to have some kind of SDK concept in the cloud, at least in the end, right? And the first building block that we wanted to do was to create a new environment type, which is in addition to the dev environment, and that somehow customers could buy or create several of them, and the difference would be that they don't have a pipeline associated with it, or not necessarily, and no Git repository, but that they provide a way to support changes at runtime. So just like with the local SDK, you can upload your configs or bundles directly. We want to do the same thing just for the cloud, right? And the main goal was just to be able to validate new features and code quickly. And the way we wanted to make it available is via, well, first of all, an API, but that wrapped into some kind of SDK thing, so a CLI approach. And we ended up picking the AIO AIO command, which is available for Adobe, and it supports plugins. So the main interaction for now with that is via the AIO plugin. And yeah, that's it. So it's the new type is called Rapid Development Environments, short RDE. They are around since, I think, April. They're publicly available. And really that's it. It's an SDK in the cloud where you can deploy to within seconds to minutes. I mean, it's not as quick as local in most cases, mostly because, first of all, you have to upload your artifacts, so that depends on your bandwidth and things like that. And obviously, we need to do a little bit more than just on a local instance to put everything into place. So it is more, half minute to a minute until you get a normal deployment done. But still, it's a lot quicker and iterative than what you had before. And I guess before I explain it too much, I think it's better to just look at what it looks like to use one.
Okay, thanks, Karl. All right, let's go to the first demo. So I have 3 demos, and they are actually recorded. I'm going to talk over them. I didn't want to depend on the network infrastructure here. So this first one is a really short one that should just give you a gist of what it is to work with an RDE. And in this case, where basically the demo is about building a website that is okay, in this case, it is about building a website that allows you to sell tree seedlings, right? And this is like a page on it. This is running in the cloud. And one of the things you can change on this website using OCI configuration is the background color of the page. Now, you might typically change other things in the OCI configuration, but I just wanted to do something that is visible, right? You can also use the OCI configuration to change the URL. And as you know, there's lots of things you can change using OCI configuration. So let's say I want to make the background color blue. I have my website deployed in RDE already. So now I just want to make this one tweak to see what it looks like. Maybe blue is the best color ever for my website. I just want to try it out quickly before I really fix it. So, what you can see here is it uses the AIO command with the RDE plugin. It's a plugin specifically for RDE, and it has an install command, and it installs the JSON. And that didn't take too long, I think about half a minute or so. And now we can switch over to our website and check it out and realize that blue is a terrible mistake. I mean, this is super ugly. So let's not take blue, but let's change it to something else. Maybe honeydew is a little bit better. Save it and deploy it again using the RDE command. And again, it only takes a couple of seconds. When you see applying update, it actually does do some validation in the middle tier. So it doesn't send it straight to the server. It does some checking that everything is as good to go. So that's why it takes a little bit of time. And now we can basically go back, refresh the page, and ta-da, this is perfect. We're happy with the result. So that's just a gist of what you can do. Back to Karl.
Right. So that hopefully gave you a good overview of how we envision that this is working. Now I have to also find out how this is working. Presenter view. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Going back. Right. So exactly. So basically, that was what David was showing is a rapid development environment. So that's why you can issue those commands. And if you're now going to zoom in a little bit into what we actually did behind the scenes, I think I don't want to make it too complicated. So I really only touch on the higher level picture. We can, if you have questions, we are around the next couple of days, so we can answer them in more detail there. But from the higher level picture, really, the idea is to recreate I guess the local install folder, right? So if you have AEM, you can create an install folder, as most of you probably know, and you can deploy by just putting your artifacts when they're built into the install folder, right? Now, granted, I mean, we use an API, so you could also say, okay, another thing you could do is use the Maven plugin, you know, to directly deploy to the instance when you're done building. Both would be good analogies here. So, but what we do instead of having a local folder, we have this CLI command, the AIO plugin, and you give it the artifact that you want to have installed. It uploads it to some file storage in the cloud, and then from there it starts to processing it. As David mentioned, we run analyzers, so the analyzers are the same that we do run in the normal pipeline, but in the build image step. So not what we do in the build that you can do locally. We run the analyzers that you get in the build image step. If those fail, you get the feedback directly, right? There's kind of an exception there where if we detect that your bundles just don't resolve like this yet, we will stage them. We're not going to put them on the instance for now, but you can keep adding bundles until the analyzers think that it will resolve in the end. And only then do we release it and deploy it to the instance. And we do that so that we don't in between get the service completely broken in there. But yeah, once the analyzers are happy, the whole thing gets deployed, and just like with the local install folder, you can target the author or the publish with run modes, just the same. But what you really get is then in the RDE environment itself, a slimmed down kind of AEM as a cloud service environment. By slimmed down, I mean, so on the one hand, we only have a single author and we only have a single publish. They're not clustered. Likewise, the author is not using Mongo behind the scenes, but they're both running on a segment storage. And so really, there are several motivations for that. One is that we wanted to make it so that the whole thing is completely mutable. So the apps part, at least, you can deploy scripts to apps via the CLI. We keep it hidden for the actual runtime, so if your bundle would try to, it would still get the same error message it would get in a normal cloud environment. But via the CLI, you can update apps, at least. Libs, we still don't allow. But so that's one. The others, cost savings and things like that. So really, in other words, the whole idea about RDEs is not that you can use them, for load testing or specific cloud scenarios like maybe failover testing of your code. That's not necessarily the intent. The intent really is to say, okay, I want to develop a feature for my program, and I want to integrate it. I want to test integrations. I want to iterate quickly on a configuration setup with Civ or whatever and see if it works. So it's more really the development use case, and that's what they're optimized for. But yeah, other than that, it's that. I mean, we don't have a golden publish either because of that, but we do handle the mutable content similar to what we do in normal pipeline out of band. So it gets pushed via a job. Yeah. So and then with that, I think we can look into a bigger example how the real flow works.
Right. Thanks, Karl. Okay. So yeah, this second demo is a little bit more in depth. It starts again from the command line. Typically how you control RDE is from a command line once you have one up and running. You can see here the various RDE commands that are there, and we'll be using most of them in the course of this demo. So the first thing you need to do when you start using an RDE is configure the AEO RDE plugin. And there's three things that you need to tell it. You need to tell it it's your Cloud Manager organization ID. That's probably the hardest one to find out. You can see that here at the top. We'll show in the next demo where you can get that actually. And then Program ID and Environment ID, again, those are all available from Cloud Manager. And now here you can see it's being configured. So we cut the .io file and it shows our configuration. So we're good to go. We still need to do one thing. We need to log in. And the login will basically perform a typical Adobe IMS login dance. So that's what you will see now. You have to kind of run the AEO login command. It'll go to the browser. You have to enter your credentials and Click your organization. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this dance. And now we're logged in, we're good to go. Okie dokie. Now the first thing, so now we're talking to the RDE instance from the command line, and the first thing we can do is check its status. We haven't done anything with it yet, so status readily shows nothing. It says it's ready, and there's no bundles or configurations deployed into it. So let's start deploying something. So for this demo here, we'll deploy the weekend bundle. Why not? So you can run the AEM install, RDE install command for it, and you can see here it takes all kinds of different things that you can install. Previously we installed no-share configuration. Here we're installing a content package. So that's what this does here. Now this actually does something else as well, which is kind of interesting. The weekend is a pretty big package. It's like 100 megabytes, and it's installing it from a public Maven Central URL. So rather than downloading it from Maven Central and uploading it to RDE, this actually does a server-to-server installation. So if it can do that, it will. It will always try it if you use a URL, and that will make the whole installation of especially big packages quicker if you, if it's possible. Next thing is it does the usual analyzers. They take a little bit longer because it's a very big package, but still it doesn't. We didn't cut out any of the time here. This is real time. The time it takes to actually upload these packages, so they're still pretty quick for a 100 megabyte plus content package. Weekend needs one other thing in order to run, and that's a dispatcher configuration. So this is yet another type of content that you can upload in RDE, and we have a dispatcher configuration file here locally. Whereas we saw previously, you can explicitly specify what type of content you're kind of uploading with the -t flag, but you don't typically have to specify that if you're uploading local files. It usually figures out from the content of the file what it is. So we just say install dispatcher.zip, and it pushes it up, and again it validates that, checks that, checks that it's all okay, which you can see here at the bottom in a second. There you go. No issues found. Syntax is also okay. We're good to go. So we've basically now got the weekend up and running in our RDE environment, and we can go into AEM to actually. Oh yeah. But first of all, we're going to do the status command. And now it will show us that there's a bunch of bundles and a bunch of configurations deployed in our RDE that we deployed from our install command. So here's our site. It's running in cloud services in our RDE environment. A normal weekend site. All looks good. And we can also go into the author, and basically using the site's editing feature of the author, you can actually look it up there and see that the weekend site is available as normal in our author, and we can use our normal authoring tools that we would always use. Now, one thing that we'd like to do next is change some content. Now, typically you would change content using the editor in the author, but in some cases the content is stored in local files, and you may want to use RDE to push the content, like a single content file, for example. So the content file that we're looking for here is called .content.xml, and it contains a change to the footer of the website. The footer is stored in this file. So you can see here on this line, it basically says, I want to change my footer. That's the change in the footer that we want to deploy. So we're just editing that locally in Visual Studio Code, save the file, and basically run the RDE AEO RDE install command with that file to push it to the server. Now, when you're installing an individual content file, you have to basically tell it where it goes. You have to tell it what the path is. So that's what this second argument -p does. Okay, it's installed, uploaded, and it should be ready in a second or so. There we go. And now we can go to our sites editor, open the site, open the page using the edit button, And we can scroll at the bottom to see that our change was actually applied. So obviously this is just a verification step, but it just shows you can use all kinds of different things to upload into RDE using the install command. So let's scroll to the bottom, and it's kind of small, but you can see I want to change my footer, it's over there. So that change got applied. So that's just another couple of use cases. Another kind of, we're making a little sidestep here. There's another feature that is useful and that is kind of new, and that's called the repository browser, which is part of the developer console. Developer console is kind of separate to RDE, but they work great side by side. And with the repository browser, you can inspect the actual JCR repository, so you can check that your change made it into the repository. So that's what we're doing here. We're opening the repository browser in the developer console. And then the only thing we need to do is we need to navigate down through the fairly deep tree that actually gets us ultimately to where our content is, a little bit further down. And there we are. And here you can see at the right-hand side, yes, the change made it into the repository. So it's another validation tool. Sometimes it can be really useful to double-check whether something made it into the repository or not. So they go well, they're combining very well together. Okay, that's the end of the second demo. Karl, back to you.
Thank you. And again, yeah, I think for the demo, so to speak, that it would work roughly the same if you update a script. Right, so as long as the script is in apps, that's not a problem. So you can just upload your script the same way you just uploaded the content XML, so to speak, and it would also work for apps. So it's mutable on that path. And this demo kind of combines two things, which is that you can also update the mutable part with it. But yeah, I mean that's really what's available. So first and foremost, the install command. Again, bundles, configs, or shell configs, content packages, content files, and content XMLs, and dispatcher config can be uploaded with it. If you give it a URL, as David mentioned, it's going to try to do a server-side copy, so it doesn't have to go through your local computer. If that fails, it will stream it through your local computer. So, but yeah, if you have a big package, for example, that's much quicker. If it's publicly available, then we do a server-side copy of it. The RDEs are really meant kind of to be used exclusively by one person at a time. You can use them concurrently, obviously, but we synchronized it so that at least, one deployment cannot interfere with the other one. So you have to wait until the last one is done. If that goes wrong, or you want to, interrupt somebody else for fun or for profit, you can give it a force flag to force the other person out, but otherwise it will wait and block you until the other one is done. You can delete bundles again and configs from what you previously deployed, but only bundles and OSGI configs, not content packages, for example. That you can do with the normal mechanisms like the package admin. So it's only bundles and configs that you can delete right now. The status command we did see, it will tell you what you have deployed right now in terms of bundles and configs. If you're interested in the history, that what happened to this environment, you can ask the history to see all the different deploys that happened since the last reset. I get to the reset in a second. And otherwise, there's also a restart, which is handy to say I want to restart the complete environment. It will restart for sure the publish and the author. Because you want to maybe test your bundles, or because something got stuck or whatever. Sometimes that can help to restart, just like you would normally restart your SDK. So in summary, RDEs are this new environment type that you create via the CM UI, or you could use the CM API as well if you wanted to. You just have to choose RDE in the place where you normally would choose your dev or stage pod type. They do have one extra thing, that's this reset operation that I just mentioned. And you can trigger it either via the CM UI or via the CLI. So reset is a kind of a special thing which basically puts the environment back in the vanilla state. Right? So it throws away all your code, but also all your content in that environment and just restarts it completely. right? So it's the shorthand for deleting and creating a new one, right? So the vision at least was that you would basically say, well, I have my RDE, I start developing with it. Once I'm done, I reset it, and that somebody else can use it. Or when I come back, I redeploy it. So they're not that long-lived. That's the idea behind it. And if you do a reset, it will also update you to that's the way to update to a new version, is via reset. You can say that you want the next version. RDEs do hibernate in sandboxes, but not in normal programs. So they are like dev environments in that regard. So that's kind of nice. And as I said, they are available since April in production. So if you have so basically, you get a credit for each solution that's applied to a production program. So if you have a sites or an assets, you should be able to create an RDE in the production program. And then they're also redeeming the credits for sandboxes. So basically, if you have a sandbox, you can also create an RDE environment in that sandbox. So if you haven't yet, if you want to, you can try them out and you start using them already for your included programs. And there's a way to buy extra credits, so you can have more than those. I'm not 100% familiar what the price is or how that really works. So in that case, you would need to reach out to your account executive to ask about more details. And I guess that's it. We have one more small demo where David shows you how that works to create one in Cloud Manager, and then we're done.
Okay. Yes. Thanks, Karl. So let's have a quick look at what was done to Cloud Manager for RDEs. So first of all, and that's, we'll have a look at how you can get this. Oops, I forgot to change the. Oh, now I've lost my mouse. Okay, I have to change the presentation mode. There. Okay, first let's have a look at how you can get this organization ID. It's in your profile, and that's where you need to get it. So that's just a quick thing to show. And then secondly, okay, if you want to create a new RDE, what do? You add new environment and just select rapid development and hit save. So that's really all there's to it. It's just another tick box in Cloud Manager, and that gets you an RDE. And here you can, this other tab, you can see there's already a few running. And they have the special reset option in Cloud Manager, but you can also actually do the reset option from the command line, as Karl already said. And if you're in trouble in your environment, the first thing you probably want to do is restart, because it's quicker, it keeps your content. If that doesn't work, or if for another reason you want to do a reset, you can use the reset option, either from the command line or in Cloud Manager. In here, it was done from the command line, but then if you update your Cloud Manager page, you can see that it's resetting. And as Karl said, it wipes all your content. Here we've got a clean sheet, but it updates the AEM version to the very latest, and it's quicker than deleting an environment and creating a new one. So in those cases, it's handy to use. And that's really the end of the demos. I hope you got an idea of what you can do with RDEs. It's a nice and quick way to iteratively develop with AEM. And I think we will go over to questions.
Yeah, thanks you. I think we have a new record of questions now. So
0.
No, opposite way. We're almost on 20, so we can't answer them all here. So I also want to mention that Karl and David going to be at the Meet the Expert session tomorrow on table number 3 around AEM DevOps. So you also can raise your questions there. So I'm just going to pick some of them here. So are you planning to add a front-end pipeline support for RDE?
Do you want to?
Yes, that is in the works. Yeah. So front-end pipeline support should be available.
I think the development work is nearly finished,
yes,
but it always takes a little while before it's rolled out.
Yes.
Then Masad would like to know, is it possible to have multiple RDE in a program, for example, to test multiple feature branches in parallel?
Yes, so as I said, for sandboxes, you get one RDE per sandbox. So it's similar like what you can normally do in a sandbox, right? You can create one dev stage pod environment and an RDE. For normal programs, it really just depends on how many credits you have. So when you get one per solution, so typically you have 1 or 2 already, so you can create 1 or 2 depending on how many credits you have. Otherwise, you have to buy more. But you can buy, I'm pretty sure,
as many
a
as
lot.
you want.
The question is whether you want to, but I mean, you can certainly buy a lot. So.
Yeah, there was like a question. I can't find it, but it was about the licensing about RDE. So,
yeah, as we said, I think you can buy via Adobe more, but you have to reach out to your account.
We're the tech guys. We don't know that stuff.
I don't 100% know how it works or what it costs. So I mean, sorry.
Excellent. Peter would like to know, why is it not possible to delete a content package? Technical reason or unwanted use case?
Well, I mean, you can, or you kind of have to delete the content package via the package manager, right? So that's what you would normally do in a normal cloud development as well, right? So if you run a pipeline, there is no way to say I delete the package, right? So we try to keep as closely as possible to the same conceptual model or workflow that you would get with a pipeline, right? So in a pipeline, I cannot say delete it. I can just not deploy it again, but that still means the content is there depending on where it was, right? So here we opted for the same thing because also it's a little tricky to know what the delete means, right? I mean, just deleting the package, okay, fine, that's just throwing it out of the registry, right? But do you delete the content? Do we unmerge? Do we go back? So it seemed easier to say, okay, you gotta handle that one with what you get. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.